Hey everyone, welcome to Hacky Lessons. Today I'm going to talk about the new Ultimate deck that is coming out November 3rd, what it is and how best to use it, because it isn't as straightforward as other starter decks. It comes with 3 different leaders, so that's Lofi, Law and Kid. There's going to be a few different ways to approach it, at least 3 it's fair to say. So what it is, if you don't know, it is a bit more of a premium product than your usual starter deck. So every card in it is foil. There is the 3 leaders, and they're all very strong, so consequently it costs a little bit more than the usual starter deck. The recommended retail price is $30 as opposed to the usual 12. So adjust accordingly for your currency. Here in Australia, starter decks usually go for $25. So I'm going to assume it's probably going to be about 50 AUD. Although I did see a page advertising it for $35, but that seems too good to be true, to be honest. Aside from having 3 leader cards included, it's got the usual stuff you would expect of a starter deck. So you got 50 cards. Most of them, if not all of them, are exclusive to the deck. Though in this one, there are OP01 reprints in it, and they are brand new arts and they're SR quality. So they are the Search Anami and the Rush Zoro. Some of the better cards in the deck will only come at 2 copies, so as usual, I recommend that you buy 2 of the deck so you have your full playset of 4 copies. The rest of the cards are a mix of Straw Hats, Heart Pirates, and Kid Pirates. They are also a mix of red and purple because all 3 of the leaders are red-purple. They all work with each leader, but there is a slight synergy between each crew and their respective captain. The question is, which leader should you play? Well, that will be up to you and how you weigh these factors. So which one suits your playstyle the best? Which one do you think has a better chance of winning? And which one do you think you'll enjoy the most? And even which one is your favourite character? So let's take a closer look at the leader cards, and we'll start with Kid. Eustacia has 5,000 power, and despite having 2 colours, he actually has 5 life. However, during your turn, if you have 4 or more life, he gets minus 1,000 power, so a bit of a balance there. But he can overcome that balance with his when attacking skill. Don -1 to get plus 2,000 power for the turn. Overusing that in the early game could put you at a significant Don disadvantage, but most of the Kid Pirate characters will be good to have on board as their effects activate when you minus a Don, making it an advantage. Trafalgar Law has 5,000 power, 4 life, and can activate main once per turn to minus 3 Don. Up to one of your opponent's characters with 3,000 power or less can be bounced to the bottom of their deck, and then you get to play a character with a cost of 4 or less from your hand. A nice new thematic take on Traffy's Shambles, and with access to red you could use it on stronger cards with cards like Otama. You'll notice all the Heart Pirates that come in the deck are 4 costs, making them perfect targets for this ability, especially as a couple of them have on-play abilities to ramp Don, making up for the minus. Monkey D. Luffy has a bigger power at 6,000, but he only has 3 life. Activate main once per turn. If you have either 0 Don or 8 or more Don, you can gain a Don inactive. This means that while you can't abuse the ability to gain extra Don, you can do it when it really counts. Minusing your Don all the way to 0 can make it really hard to regain traction, so the ability helps there, and it also lets you do a bigger play slightly earlier. This ability is going to be very useful when OP05 comes out and you gain access to the 10 cost Secret Rare Gear 5 Luffy. And speaking of OP05, the Ultimate deck actually comes out roughly halfway between OP04 and OP05. And so while there are a lot of cards in the new set that will go with this deck, we won't have access to them for another month or so. So what I'll do for this video now is take some examples of deck lists that did well in the Japan meta during OP04, and then some examples from OP05, so you can have a look at playing the deck both now and later. These will be lists on OnePieceTopDecks.com that came first. They aren't necessarily how you have to build the decks, just a good jumping off point on how the decks could look as you build them. Decks that did well. So this lore list is by Sakura TCG and came first in a flagship tournament in Japan. This person has gone for a little bit of a Whitebeard Pirates engine with some Heart Pirates, and then there's Otama, Brook, and Gordon's to reduce opponent's character's power for the leader ability to hit bigger things. The radical beams aren't restricted in the Japanese meta, so of course we can't run this exact list here, but just note that the ace can't gain rush, they're just playing it for the on-play ability to reduce power. This Lofi list by Afisu also won a flagship tournament in Japan. It's a bit of a mix of things, no searches because it would probably whiff every time. Yet it still has plenty of draw power with Queen, Missile Sunday and the All-Star Calamities. The one thing that this deck seems to want to do is play big characters early. So there's a lot of ramp cards like Hawkins and Missile Sunday, and then there's big boys like Shanks, Whitebeard and Kid. And again, to point out, Edward Newgate isn't restricted in their meta. Now unfortunately, I couldn't find an example of a Kid deck on One Piece top decks. Doesn't necessarily mean it's not as good, but it didn't seem to top during their pre-OPO5 meta as far as the records go. So I went over to nakamadex.com, which is a website I hadn't been to before, and the layout it looks very nice, so despite the dumb name, I might have to use it for deck profiles from now on. So I found this list on the front page, and unlike the others, I can't confirm if it's good or not with results to back it up, but this list is by Alert Bagel, and as they've named it, it's heavy on rush cards, making it rather aggro. The 9 cost Kaido and the 10 cost Luffy are huge. Sanji only gets rush if your opponent has a character with 5,000 power or more, but that's fairly likely to be during most games. A fair amount of Straw Hats in this deck, so Nami Searcher, and then the Diable Jambe on the 10 cost Luffy could be massive. This leader kind of wants to get down to 3 life quickly, so that 2k counter Sanji could be good in this deck. But now we shall have a look at what the decks can do with OPO5. This lore list is by Suge, and it won a tournament called the Shumai Cup, which had 122 participants. And the interesting thing about this list compared to the OPO4 one that we just looked at is it's only running 4 OPO5 cards. The 3 cost lore is a searcher for Heart Pirates, and that means the red promo Beppo is a viable option. Zorojuro is going to be a good card in all of these decks, especially Lore and Kid, helping you recover the Don that your leader ability minuses. Same goes for the 5 cost Kid. Gamma Knife is the perfect card for this deck, being a Heart Pirate traded card and being great for the leader's ability activate main, cost 2, and a -1 Don to give an opponent's character -5,000 power. Now going into OPO5, Mono Purple Luffy has been a much more popular Straw Hat deck. I had to scroll a fair bit to find some red purple amongst the Mono Purple in top decks. But this list by Lelouch Wong, or is it V Britannia, that won a flagship tournament in Malaysia. This list is very much a thematic Straw Hat list, so I like that, with only strong staple cards like Queen and Whitebeard out of place of the theme. So 4 copies of Jean Bart to ramp Don quicker in order to reach the big characters. 4 copies of the Gear 5 Luffy, Vanilla Sanji and Whitebeard. Playing Gear 5 Luffy bottom decks all of your own characters. And so on the other side of this deck there is a fair amount of rush to play on the next turn. So you got 4 copies of Zoro, 2 copies of the 5 cost Luffy and 1 of the 10 cost, as well as 4 Frankie that only get rush if you have 8 or more Don. I think this leader is great for Gear 5 Luffy. You play him for 10, that puts all your Don back in the Don deck. Use the leader ability to gain Don back. The Don comes back in active, so you can either attach it to your leader to attack for 7,000, or you could play a Nami Searcher. And then you get to take another turn, essentially making Gear 5 a rush card in a way. At the start of your turn, you'll put 2 Don up, so you'll be at 3 now. And now you can use the activate main on the Gear 5 to pay 1 Don and put a Don from your Don deck in active. So that gets you back to 4 Don already. Attack with the leader again. Maybe attach the 3 Don you have to Nami, or you could play a Rush Zoro. And then also attack with Gear 5 Luffy. I really like the look of this deck, and we'll probably play it over the Mono Purple version. Only having 3 life isn't great, but the permanent 6,000 power and the way it supports using Gear 5 and its access to red really appeal to me, more than the Mono Purple Luffy does. Mono Purple can also ramp Don, and it can do it whenever it wants, but it's at the cost of taking a life, so it's not like the extra life that it has really matters, although this essentially does mean it has more draw power than the red purple. But once again, I found no lists for Kid on top decks. It's kind of strange because the leader seems great to me, but whether it's not topping because it's just not good enough or it's just not popular, it's hard to say. But it's worth pointing out that the English meta can vary quite a bit from the Japanese meta due to different playstyles and different decks being more popular. Different decks can rise up here that are stronger against the decks that are being more popular. Because I need to show something here, I've quickly put together a list to show as an example of what cards you could put in it. It is literally quickly put together and I haven't tested it, so I wouldn't necessarily go with this list. I can already see some issues that I didn't find enough room for 2k counters and event counters, but it's just a thematic Kid Pirates list with some Straw Hats in there as well. 5 cost Kid is great, and so too is the Purple Zoro. If you can minimize how far you fall behind from using your leader ability, the leader can be a very strong attacker. With that in mind, the build could probably put less emphasis on the characters being main attackers, which isn't really what I've done here outside of the Kid Pirates engine, already designed to work with this leader. With that overview done, I hope you have a much clearer vision of what leader to go with. For me, I'm pretty excited for the new Law leader. I like a good thematic ability, and I like Law as a character as well. But I'm not too into the red-green Law leader, so this is a good deck for me to play, I think. I see a lot of potential in the board control aspect of removing an opponent's character at the same time as playing one of your own. And after making this video, I'm much more excited for the Lofi leader as well. I really like how he works with the Gear 5 Lofi, so I will definitely play it once OPO5 comes out. Kid I feel is strong as well, though it's disappointing that it doesn't seem to reflect in the meta. He might be a fun deck building challenge to find the right list that puts him on the map, so let me know what leader you're going to play in the comments. Hopefully this video helped you make that choice, and if it did, please leave a like, and if you subscribe you can see more content like this from me, so I'll see you next time.